quickly give everyone present in the meeting an overview of how Google Meet works. We haven't been using this officially. We've been using Zoom for most of our meetings. So on the screen, you would notice there are tabs with all the representing all the participants that are connected. If you look down to the bottom of your browser window, your Google Meet window, you would find the audio settings button following the clock. Like this. Okay, so like I was saying, if you look down, you will find the clock by the left hand side. Then after that, you would find the microphone or audio settings. Then your video settings tab, and after that, you would find a captions tab, reactions button, present now button allows whoever is presenting or sharing a screen to do so. And there is a raise a hand button. Before you have more options and the button to leave the call or to leave the meeting. Okay, meeting details tab allows you to view the subject matter and time and other details for this meeting. And you would find the people like welcome once again. Like I was saying, I was just putting us through the workings of this Google Meet. We chose to use Google Meet because we anticipated challenges with the internet, but it's really disheartening to come in here and almost every 5 minutes the internet is going off and on, and I don't know how we can achieve what we want with this, but I'll go ahead with the training anyway. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen to do the presentation of what I want to present right now. But to say the least, is really very, very disheartening to, to experience this kind of thing. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen right now. Can you see the Excel spreadsheet on the screen? Okay, so let me just go ahead and introduce us to Excel, Microsoft Excel. Okay, we're going to open a new worksheet in Excel. First, let me mention Microsoft Excel is a software application that allows us to create, manipulate numbers, figures, patterns of different types in different ways. It allows us to create workbooks. That's what we call the whole collection of spreadsheets that are created. Okay, so to open an Excel document, we're going to open a fresh new tab. Let's notice as I've opened the Excel window, this is the Microsoft Excel window. Let's notice that the blank workbook allows me to open a blank workbook, right? But notice at the top here, there are different templates. We have business templates, for instance. Just taking a minute to go over there so you would understand what I'm talking about when I say we have business templates. Okay, so we have, sorry, which one am I sharing? Okay. Oh, you see, I didn't even know that was what it was. Okay, so I'm just opening a new worksheet, right? That's what I'm sharing. I'm presenting it. Can you all view this Excel spreadsheet on your screens? Can you see that on your browser screens?
I can see it.
Oh, okay, okay. So I'm on the right now. Okay. So, like I was saying, I can decide to open a blank template, a blank workbook, or I can make use of templates depending on what I want to do. There are loads of templates here that I can choose from, to what I want to do. Okay, so I'm opening a blank. Okay, so I've just opened a blank worksheet, right? So let me just take us through the components of a worksheet, right? If you can follow my cursor, right? Notice we have tabs like the file tab, the home tab, insert tab, and what have you, page layout, and on and so on and so forth, right? Notice that each of the tabs I click displays a ribbon. That's what this is called, this long stretch, right? And in the ribbon, you have groups, right? So let's take it again from tabs, home tab, insert tab, page layout tab, formulas tab. We have ribbons, and each of these ribbons changes as we select the tabs, right? Then within these ribbons, you have groups. That's what we call all these groups of items, small icons that you can see in this ribbon. For instance, in the home ribbon, we have the first group having paste, cut, copy, and all those editing items, editing icons, right? And all the way down, we have several groups. The first group is for editing. The second group is also for character and font management. Okay, the group following is for borders, alignment, and what have you. That's cell alignment, content alignment in cells, and all. So, like I said, these are called ribbons. Each tab you click on will display a new set of ribbons for you to use, right? Okay, so moving on, we're still taking these sheets apart, right? Moving on, like I mentioned, at this top we have tabs, right? Notice up here, we have something up here in this top left corner, right? We have save, um, all these icons listed here, right? So these are quick access stuff for me to use if I want to save, or you can customize that to suit your needs. Okay, Up here, we have book one Excel. That's the title of this page. That's the title of this workbook for now because it's not been saved. Okay. Then at the top right corner, right? Notice you have the Excel help, the ribbon display options, then the screen minimize, maximize, and close options. All those option buttons are right there by the top right corner. Notice also the name of the of the editor. That's the name of the person working on this workbook. For in this case now, it's my system, and my name is displayed up there as the author, as the person creating this workbook. Okay, so below the ribbons, right? Don't forget, I just said these tabs display different ribbons, and on the ribbons you have groups. Below these ribbons, we have a very interesting, uh, text box right here. Is a key text box to take note of, right? Because that is where we identify the particular cell that we are working on. Notice that my active, this active cell now, that's the cell that is highlighted, is A1. If I move the cursor to another cell and click to highlight, clicking once, left clicking once, notice this address bar, that this text box up here by the top left is showing me the particular cell that is selected, that is active. And notice that it is an intersection of the column and the row. So that brings us to what makes up the spreadsheet. Columns lettered A to use control to XFD, and also rows numbered. The rows are by the left corner from 1 to, let's see where it gets to 1 million, right? 48,576. Okay, so the worksheet, mind you, each worksheet is made up of about 17 billion cells, right? And each of these cells can be referenced by IDing each of them. In other words, wherever there's an intersection between the columns, in this case, for instance, B5, column and row intersecting, gives me this. Are just see the cell number up there. I call this the cell name. This is what we use to ID the cell or identify the active cell. Is B5 up here, right? Okay, so just take note of that. Remember, each worksheet is made up of about 17 billion cells, and we can reference each of these cells, right, by naming where they intersect. In other words, where the columns cross with the rows. Each particular cell has its ID, right? So, like you can see, you can name each of the cells, right? And sorry, I just keep admitting people. Okay, so we can actually name these cells. Now, moving forward, let me make this easier for us to follow so that. Okay, so going down in the sheet, admitting everybody. Okay, going down the worksheet, notice there's a tab at the bottom of the left corner of the screen, at the left bottom corner of the screen, and there's a plus button following it, right? Each of these tabs at the bottom shows you an active or inactive worksheet, or it shows you a sheet, a worksheet. Now, a collection of worksheets make up a workbook, right? Like I just clicked on the arrow now to create a new sheet, and it just added sheet one, sheet two, it just added two and three to the sheets. So all these sheets one, two, and three collectively will make up this Excel workbook, right? If I save this now by going to File and say, for instance, Save, it will prompt the Save As dialog box, because I haven't saved this document before now. This is the first time I'm clicking on Save. That is why it has opened this Save As dialog box. It allows me to see to pick the location where I want to save. That's why it's displaying the computer with all the references. These are all different locations that I can pick and reference. And if I'm not satisfied with any of these locations highlighted here, I could click on Browse to select alternative locations where I would want to save this workbook. Okay, that said, I'm not saving this for now. Let's get back to the worksheet. Okay, so still taking this worksheet apart, I mentioned that each of the sheets is made up of a combination of 17 billion cells thereabout, right? And each of these cells have their identities. That's notice this particular active cell I've selected is identified by the intersection of the column A and the row 3. Therefore, the ID of the active cell is A3, right? Okay, let's move forward. Next to the name box where the ID of the active cells are showing, there is a formula bar by the right. This is a very important bar to take note of, because we're going to do a lot of things putting formulae in this box to work in the worksheets. Okay, that said, let's look at how to express how Excel works. Let's look at a bit of information. Let's say I have 1, 2, 3, right? And I want to reference all this, right? Notice I could decide to just highlight and drag them. It's already, Excel in the name box is already telling me how many rows I've selected, right? That's 3 rows in 1 column. That's 3R1C in the name box. It's telling me I've selected 3 rows and 1 column, right? And at the bottom of the page, notice there's an average, 2, count 3, and sum 6. All those are auto Excel functions that are working there, right? Okay, I just want to use this to describe what we call a range. Let me drag this and create something. Okay, so there is what we call a range, right? That is usually expressed by saying maybe one name box, right? Let's say, what would I use to? Let's say sum equals sum of this range of items, say from here all the way to G3. Notice the column. It says sum B3 to G3. The column here means range. It says here, sum whatever you find from cell B3 through a range, in other words, through G3. That's a range, right? I just wanted to express what a range is so that we would understand. Okay, to carry this on, I'm going to prepare a very simple list. Let's assume we're an engineering firm. A group of engineers have gone to the field, and their team lead has been asked to go ahead and put in a report to show how they spent money on accommodation and feeding through maybe 1 week of work, right? So let me quickly prepare a table, right, listing the engineers. For time, for brevity, I would not be too detailed here. I'll just go ahead and use first names, right? Names. If I want department, right? Number of days, right? And unit total. Okay. Notice that as I have typed this, these cells do not necessarily accommodate everything. Like in D, number of days has been cut. C also department has been cut. Is displaying just part of what I want to display. Okay. To fix this, notice that the column C, right? Notice the column C as I have highlighted it. If I move the cursor to the right, a black cross appears, right? That allows me to drag this column, this range of cells in this column, and extend the width to what I want it to look like, right? That's one way of doing it. I could also decide, like in this number of days, I could decide to do something different. I can decide to wrap the text. What does it mean to wrap text? As I click on wrap, notice I went to the ribbon under home, right? Under alignment group, right? And I found wrap text. Why? Because of course it has to do with aligning text in the spreadsheet for me. Okay, so I've just fixed that number of days being cut in half in the cell by clicking wrap text, because since the number of days would not extend, in other words, we're talking of like 7 days. So the person that would stay the most there would be like 7 days. It wouldn't require too many texts, you know. So in other words, I don't need so much space in that column, right? I would even need to reduce the size of the column a bit, right? Okay, so I've just typed my headings out. Let's reduce the serial number. I would use the font group in the ribbon to change the appearance of the fonts here. For instance, I want to change this to bold text. I've made all the fonts bold here, right? I also come back to alignment and click this middle alignment button so that all the other items that were baseline earlier have been shifted. They have been moved to the middle line in line with number of days, right? So it doesn't look like number of days is floating above all of them. So it's been centralized vertically, right? If I want to work on alignment left or right, there are tabs there in the alignment group. Okay, so quickly let me go on. I might want to type, let's say there are 10 people in this project. I might want to type 1 to 10, you know, manually. But Excel has a way of working with patterns. What I mean by patterns, I didn't just say numbers, because I will show you why I said patterns. Because, for instance, this is 1, 2, 3, right? and I want to extend, I want it to extend and count, changing the numbers to 10, right? One way of doing this is I've already established a pattern by typing 1, 2, 3, right? Notice that as I select the first cell, which is the name box A5 through A7, I don't want to lose anybody here, right? A5 is 1, A6 is 2, and A7 is 3. That's why I said A5 through A7, because I'm selecting, I'm left clicking on my mouse as I'm dragging it down to select all of them. Now, notice at the end, there's this black stuff, this black cross. Never mind, when it changes to a white bold cross, it means something else. When it is black and really tiny, right? That's what gives us access to the node. You see this small black square under 3. That's the node of this range I have selected. If I left click and drag it down, Excel automatically picks up the pattern and continues to extend that pattern by adding 1 to each of the numbers till I let it go at the bottom, right? In this case, from cells A5 to 14, it has added 1 to 10, right? Now, why did I say it's adding patterns, not necessarily numbers? If we say, let's see, serial number 1, okay? Let's say serial number 1, serial number 2, right? And serial number 3. These are not numbers. These are alphanumeric characters, because it has alphabets and numbers. But I want to say serial number 1, serial number 2, all in one. If I drag it down, notice what's happening. It's still increasing the numbers on the right side and following that pattern SN. In other words, that's why I said Excel works with the pattern, right? Okay, so let's say we have 1 to 10. Now, if assuming I made a mistake and I want to revert to 1 to 10, no SN1. I can do that in so many ways. I can use delete to delete everything and start typing from 1 to 10 again. I can delete everything, start typing from 1 to 3 and drag it down to do 10. Or I could say Control Z to go back one step at a time that I have done. On doing them one step at a time, I'm doing Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Let me type it so you know what I'm saying. Control on the keyboard, that control button, left bottom corner of your keyboard, plus Z. This character Z for zebra. If you use both of them, Excel keeps going one action at a time. It keeps going back one action at a time, right? To redo, that's like undoing. What we just did was undoing, right? So to redo is just Control Y. That's like the opposite of Control Z. I'm redoing now with Control Y, and everything will start appearing one by one.